Hello, my name is Jan Glor, and welcome to the Harlem Times, bringing news to Harlem and the Harlems of the world. Today, we are speaking with Deryl McKissack, one of the premier architects in our nation. Through her firm, McKissack and McKissack, she has spearheaded a variety of nationally acclaimed works, such as the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial and the Museum of African American History. She's also a member of the McKissack family, a group of African American engineers and architects whose roots date back to the late 1800s and have been leaders in American innovation in construction and design. So I'm bringing you now to Deryl. Hi, Deryl. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Jan. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. How's the weather? I can see the sun and the beach. Looks fun.
The weather is fantastic. I happen to be down in Miami, and the weather has been beautiful all season this year.
Oh, that's amazing. I cannot say the same thing about New York. We have past few days, it's been raining and it has not been fun.
Oh no, I heard that you were getting some pretty good weather at some point.
Well, today's quite good. Today's quite good. So do you think you could tell me in a way your personal story, growing up and how that has related to your family's firm?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a wonderful household. I had awesome parents and great sisters. No brothers. Always wished I had a brother. So we had a lot of play brothers growing up. But I, grew up knowing on the business side, my father's business, which was design and construction. And worked in the office. My sister and I started working in the office at 6 years old. Of course, we weren't doing anything. It was on Saturdays. And, my mother was just trying to get us out of the house. So my father would take us on Saturdays and he would prop us up on drawing tables and have us draw. And by the time we were 13, he started really using our drawings. So we had this one track with our father who was showing us the practical world, I would say, the practical business world of actually working and producing product. And then we had our mother on the other side who was always building our confidence and always making sure that not only did we study, but we also had to know world events. So every day before we could go out and play, we had to read an article out of Time magazine. And we laugh now, and she said, "Well, you think it was bad? I had to read the whole magazine because I didn't know what article you were going to pick." And I said, "Well, you could just pick the shortest one. That's the one I always pick."
Oh, that is absolutely sweet. That is wonderful. So,
Yeah.
So in that case, how big of an influence were both of your parents in essentially in your field, for your field?
For my field, my father was a huge influence. We went on job sites with him and we worked there all the way through high school. And when we got to college, we worked at some of his friends' architectural firm. So, it's what we've been doing and being groomed for our entire life.
And I assume you enjoy it very much. Must be quite happy.
Yes, even though now, I don't get to work on any projects. I really, sometimes I wish I could take a sabbatical from being the CEO of my company and just go on a job site and work a job site for about 5 or 6 months. That would be really fun. But unfortunately, I haven't been able to do that for many, many years.
Well, then going to your projects, which projects are you really the most proud of?
I am very proud of all of our projects because if I look at the projects that we work on now, they are really here to enhance people's lives and to make the world a better place. Whether it be one of our cultural projects like the Lincoln and Jefferson Memorial upgrades, the Martin Luther King Memorial and National Mall, any of our presidential libraries, all of those make people think about our past, where are we going in the future? It changes mindsets. That's really exciting. A lot of our projects have changed the faces of cities in the sense that, they're in the skyline, and they've changed skylines. A lot of our projects have changed the lives of kids, which is really near and dear to me. All of the K through 12 work that we do. We have one of the largest K through 12 practices in urban areas in the country. So all of them, whether it's a bridge, a road, all people need all of that to get around, whether it's an airport, everybody used to use an airport to get to where they're going. And so how useful is that? Extremely so.
So you want most of your recent projects, you've been really trying to inspire youth? Well,
inspire people, period. I think all people need inspiration, whether it's youth. Definitely our youth need inspiration, but it's all people. And, probably about 15 years ago, I happened to visit one of our schools, high schools in Washington, D.C., and I had to go to the bathroom. I was actually giving a speech. But when I walked in the bathroom, it was in such disarray. It was dilapidated, the toilets were off the wall, some of the partitions were missing, sinks were missing, the mirrors were dim, the light was dim. And I was just thinking, how can we expect our kids, especially our girls, to grow up and be ladies, working every day in an environment like this? And at that point, I kind of changed our mission statement to go past bricks and mortar, but really to enhancing people's lives through the design and construction industry. Luckily, we've been able to work on that program in DC, where DC now has spent almost $5 billion to renovate and build new schools. And it's a completely new experience going through, DC public schools. But I'm proud that we've had a major role in that over the last 12 years.
Do you think you could go into a little more detail about that? How have you been working in these schools? Have you just renovating?
We helped them start the program as their program managers. And so that's really saying, okay, we have $3 billion. How are we going to spend this money the most efficiently and see the most out of it? The mayor at that time was also, I want ribbon cuttings on, new facilities, the renovation of existing facilities. So our firm managed the design teams and managed the construction teams, and also managed the overall schedule and budget for the client. So, we were very instrumental. We were the glue that helped get those projects over the goal line every year. And, you have to deal with quality, you have to deal with schedule, and you have to deal with time. And all of those have to be managed. And so, that's what we've been doing. So.
That's amazing. It's quite inspirational. And with those kids, you said you were doing projects with engineering. Are there any, could you tell me about these kinds of projects that you're doing?
Well, they're schools. So it could be in elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. During the process, people really started getting into sustainability. And we thought it was a great way to teach the students about sustainability by having metrics that they could see every day. So we would show how much energy the geothermal system was producing, or how much energy the solar panels were producing for facilities that we were building, or the facility that they were in. And because our school system is very sustainable at this point in Washington. So I think that was a great experience for the kids.
Yes. Interesting. When I was talking to your sister, she told me that when your mother became an executive in the 1980s, she had to deal with a lot of criticism a lot of hardship. Do you still experience this in an industry? And if you do, how do you deal with this?
I do. And, my mother, she was a very strong woman, and thank God she was, because she made it through, right? But in her time, I think that she dealt with a lot of discrimination for being a woman in a man's world, more so than anything else. I feel like I do get that too. During that time, growing up, starting, going through my early years, I did experience more discrimination for being a woman. But also it's been for being a minority firm. I mean, that has happened in more recent years, where you're seeing more women in the industry, but yet minority firms are still treated differently, treated as if we're not as good as the majority firms, or the innuendo is there. It's not necessarily anything somebody says, but then wait, I take that back, because they were microaggressions. They're always like, are you sure you can do this? And after you tell them all the monuments, all the great projects you finished successfully, by the way, with commendation letters, it still comes back to, but can you really do this job? And I've seen that over and over. So it is definitely still there. We're still having to deal with it. And it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate, because we cannot afford to fail. Minority firms and women-owned firms, we know if we fail once, it's not going to just hurt us and we're totally out, but it's going to hurt firms coming behind us. Where I see large majority firms failing all the time and they get the job again.
Do you think that this is just a regional instance, or would you say that this happens to everywhere in the United States?
It happens everywhere in the United States. I work in DC, Chicago, LA, Miami, Austin, and Dallas. And, I've encountered something in every city, and I still encounter it.
Well, then it's great that you've been keeping the fight going with all of these different projects. You have to make sure that just keep up the fight. And
yes.
And it's with your projects, do you, as a company, do you still hope to have most of your projects in the United States, or would you like to go to economies that are abroad? For example, there's a lot of countries in Africa that are now growing, and they're in need of very, very competent and well-run architecture firms or construction firms to help build up their economy. Do you have any interest in that?
Well, I'm not closing the door on it, but right now, the United States is super busy, and we're extremely busy in the cities that we're in. And we're being asked to go to other cities. And I just don't want to spread our resources too thin. And I want to make sure that we can always meet the quality standard that we have set for the company. So, maybe a few years from now, it's something that we could do. I never say never, because you don't know what's coming around the corner. Mm-hmm. But I would just want to make sure that, and we've done work overseas, don't get me wrong. We have done work overseas, and, we will look at things overseas. But if I don't see that we can be truly successful and an asset to the client, it's something that I would not want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. So it's just, you're just in the middle. Just kind of.
I'm focused.
Focused.
You can get
important.
Unfocused, yes, and miss out on a lot of things. The hardest way to to go into the hardest barrier of entry is going into a new place. Okay, that's the hardest one to do. So if you can do what you want to do and get new projects in the areas you're in and you're familiar with, why do that? Unless there's some good compelling reason. So I wouldn't say I'm in the middle. I would say I'm open, but I'm very focused on the US.
This takes us to the sponsor of this interview, Chase Bank.
What's going on, people? Surprise!
I've never had a savings account.
Debt is piling up.
I get afraid to check my bank account.
I don't have a job yet.
Let's go to it. 2, 1, let's
Go,
go.
come on. It's a credit card
Get
right
that
here.
credit
Come on,
card.
come on.
Stinking card. Question number 1. Who is better with budgeting?
Welcome to my
A
room.
lot of shoes with a lot of outfits.
Yes.
Are we budgeting on the right things? If you put the work into it, then it has no choice but to get better.
We gotta do some work.
Little work.
What's little work? Like, did the computer blow up? Savings today, rewards tomorrow. This is a financial flow. Once you
Come on, brother. I've been teaching you this for a long time.
you now have your eyesight set on something far ahead. Here's the good news, you both can do it together.
Now I'm ready to make this thing happen.
Yes plus yes equals yes.
And that's the heart of it all.
And now, after our short intermission, we are going back to Deryl. Well, in your projects that you're working on now, is there anything new on the horizon that's of great interest to yourself?
Well, yeah, there's always new projects on the horizon. Last year, we responded to a lot of proposals, or we put in a lot of proposals, and we won a lot of work. And so, you know, we're growing in sectors like aviation and healthcare. We are continuing to grow with utility work, underground kind of work, whether it's the undergrounding of electrical systems, energy. So, yeah, we have a lot of new projects that are underway and on the way that we're excited about.
Well, seeing as we are living in a COVID world, every business is impacted by COVID. How has it affected your architectural firm?
Well, so, you know, architecture is probably like 20% of our business. The other 80% is program management and construction management of major projects. And construction was considered essential. So all of our employees continue to go to work every day. On the architecture side, they did have sort of a downturn because they were working on office space. And of course, people don't know where office space is really going yet. We have ideas, but most people are downsizing. So whatever plans they had pre-COVID are not the plans that they have now, and as we come out of COVID. So yes, there has been a downturn in architecture, but now it's picked back up again because people are now saying, okay, we got to do something about our space. So let's figure out what it is. And so, you know, they're coming back. In terms of employees with COVID, we only experienced one employee that was hospitalized, and we're happy to say she's back in the office and working, well, not in the office, but back working again. We have remained virtual, the office has, but our staff, some of them are going into work intermittently, and they sit with clients, but the majority of them are still working virtually. As a CEO of the company, most of my life pre-COVID was external. So I spent a lot of time talking to clients and prospective clients and organizations, and even doing inspirational speeches to some of the corporations in the country. And then with COVID, I decided to turn all of that inward and start spending time with my staff, doing inspirational speeches inside of my company, inspiring people inside of my company. Because I thought was, well, first of all, there was fear, there was anxiety, there was confusion, it was just so many different types of feelings that, trying to quell all of those and to get people to really concentrate back on work and family and building themselves up. I wanted to make sure that people felt grateful for what we did have, because that's the only way we could feel hopeful about what could happen going through this. And this is the beginning part of COVID, right? We had no idea when we were coming out. There was no vaccine on the horizon. And so we started spending time talking about how are we going to come out of COVID better? What are we going to do for ourselves, for our family and our community, to help others come out of COVID better? And it turned out to be just a wonderful time of bonding with my employees, building our culture. We have a humble, hungry, smart culture. And so building that kind of culture was really rewarding to me.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Must be, especially with your Zoom calls. You can see, everyone's kids and the dogs. If you go on this kind of.
Yes, we started having town halls every 2 weeks, and a couple of town halls we sent pizza to everybody's family and had a party, and to bring your family and your dog on. So, yep, you can see everybody.
Really sounds enjoyable. Well, outside of work, could you tell me about your philanthropic work?
Yeah. So I'm on the board of Living Classrooms, which works with kids to help them build their interests in STEM. Mm-hmm. And they use boats as a technique. The person who started this had a huge sailboat, and the interest of the sailboat makes kids ask a lot of questions about the buoyancy of water and how does energy work, and wind, and all these things. So, but it's grown much more from just that. And so, we just have, it's a great venue, I'd say, into the science and the math and engineering and technology. So that's one. And then I like art. So I've worked with I've been on the board of the Perez Museum down here in Miami. And we do a lot of community events, we used to pre-COVID, and trying to get the community interested in the arts. During COVID, I switched my philanthropic focus to feeding people, and so worked with different organizations that were food banks and getting food to people who needed it.
Sounds like special work. But in terms of art, what kind of artist are you? You like to paint?
Well, so I actually draw in my diary when I'm traveling, and I've become an expert in palm trees because I'm always on vacation. I didn't know there were so many varieties of palm trees till I started drawing them. But I like, looking at contemporary art. My mother and father always had a collection of African American artists when I was growing up, some of which they've gifted to my sisters and myself. And so that's what we do with art.
Well, tying back into education for yourself, I know you attended Howard. How important was going to an HBCU?
Very important, because my sister and I had gone to the same school from kindergarten to the 12th grade, and there were only 3 Black people in our class. Everybody else was white or Jewish. And because this is Nashville, there was no other ethnic group there. That was it. And so we always wanted to go to a historically Black college and university just to see what it's like to not be the person that's different in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And different on the football fields and whatever. And so it was a beautiful experience. And the teachers there, took a strong, they had a strong commitment to the students and our success. And they were tough on us. But, we're the better for it, I would say. So I enjoyed it. So much fun going back to our culture, understanding our culture better, seeing the different types of diversity in our culture as African Americans and experiencing that. I enjoyed it a lot.
What was your most memorable experience there then?
Oh my goodness, I just don't even know where to start. I'm trying to think of what is something I can say.
Oh, there must not be a lot then, huh?
So it was fun going on the yard for, homecoming weekend and going to our raggedy football games where we always lost. Every now and then we'd win, and that would be really a lot of fun. And I enjoyed just sitting in the dorm room with my friends. It was like having a slumber party, every night. Yeah.
Well, having an education with your sister, you must have both become very close. I'm presuming, right?
Yes, we're very.
So, how often do you guys work together, or are you guys completely separated?
No, we do work together on projects every now and then, and we've been separated geographically for a long time, and now we're beginning to have some overlap. And so because of our separation geographically, there wasn't really an opportunity for us to work together. But now that we're coming into each other's territories per se, we're able to work together, and that's always nice.
And do you have any notable projects that you both worked on?
Yeah, we worked on the Dulles Toll Road, the Dulles extension. I'm sorry, the Dulles extension of the Silver Line in Virginia. She provided a construction manager for me, and then I've worked with her on the MTA up in New York. And let's see, that's all I can think of right now. I know I'm missing something. I am missing something. We've teamed up on going after some projects together in LA, but we weren't successful. Yeah.
But it's still fun to work together, even if it doesn't go to plan, right?
Yep, it's fun, and we've been doing interviews. Before I got on this interview, we're going to be interviewed by a family circle on a panel together. We do a lot of that, and we have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, Cheryl's told me about the MTA and how many projects she does, and so I can definitely see the how that would overlap for sure. Well, ending off. Is there anything that you would like to say to our audience who may be interested or entering the architectural field? Do you have any words of encouragement that you could provide?
Yes, I would say that, well, first of all, make sure you get a good education, because that right there gives you confidence. And if there's one thing that you need to overcome anything that you can come against, whether you're black, white, or indifferent, you have to have confidence. And it starts with knowing that you know. Of course, when you come out into the field, there's going to be a lot more for you to learn. And, I remember just spending many hours at work in my young part of my career. I was the first one there, so I was probably there about 6:30 in the morning, and I was the last one to leave, which was probably around 7:30 at night. And I just tried to be a sponge to get as much information as I could on how to actually execute projects. The next thing, though, is this inner strength. It's so important that you believe who you are and you define yourself, and you don't let others define you, because people will put labels on you and they don't even know you. And they'll put their insecurities and their feelings on you. So, I just feel like you should always define yourself. My ancestors were slaves. And if they had let the world define them, they would have remained slaves, but they defined themselves as leaders. And they got their freedom and started our business and all of that. So, I just think it's key that you define yourself.
Well, Deryl, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, well, it was great talking to you too, Jan.